Right now, analytics is hot, and that's quite a change. I remember a few years ago, just 2, 3 years ago, I was coming back from vacation in the U.S. and I struck up a conversation with the fellow sitting next to me on the plane. He was an American guy, an electrical engineer on his way to China for business. And well, it was all clear enough. When I tried to explain what I do, I got nowhere. He was asking me things like, "You mean analytical calculus?" He even asked me, believe it or not, "What's a statistician?" You know, in the era of Nate Silver, that's hard to believe. It's a true story. Yeah, now it's quite a change. It's difficult to turn on the TV or pick up a newspaper without hearing or reading something about analytics. It's really a common thing. It's hot. It's cool. Now, according to no less an authority than Harvard Business Review, it's the sexiest job of the 21st century, whereas just a few years ago, it was a blank stare. But what do we mean by analytics? From speaking with colleagues, clients, from the news accounts themselves, a clear pattern emerges, and that is that analytics means different things to different people. So I was intrigued by that and started some LinkedIn discussions in which I asked, when you hear analytics, what does it mean to you? Let me show you a few of the responses that I got from that. Or a couple more. This one is my favorite. He's really blowing off steam. To get to his last point, I think that, to be blunt, a lot of the hype about analytics, at least what I perceive to be hype, is driven to no small degree by software vendors. And I don't know about you, but it's been more than one occasion when I've seen an ad or some promotion for something, some kind of software that promises miraculous analytics, and you take a look at it, and it really doesn't do anything you couldn't do yourself in Excel pretty easily. All that aside, what about the dictionaries? Let me show you just a few of the quote unquote official definitions of analytics. Wikipedia has quite a lot to say on analytics. I'll just give you a snippet. Well, as you can see, there doesn't seem to be very much agreement on what analytics is, either on LinkedIn or in the dictionaries themselves. But it doesn't really matter. Different strokes for different folks. Who cares? Well, this is big business, so I think we really need to be as specific as possible about what we mean by analytics. And accordingly, I'd like to propose a definition. Analytics is the discovery and communication of meaningful patterns in data. It makes use of information technology, statistics, and mathematical algorithms to develop knowledge, to quantify performance, or to make predictions. It uses the insights gained from this process to recommend action or to guide decision making. Analytics is best thought of as a methodology, not simply as isolated tools or steps in the process. Well, why this one? Why, what's agree? You can see that I borrowed pretty heavily from Wikipedia. Apologies, Kudos to them. Kudos to them. I like this definition, and I did give it quite a bit of thought. As it stresses that analytics is not simply one thing. It's a methodology. It employs many tools as part of a process. And also, analytics is hard to describe very concisely. It's easier really to describe than to define. I've mentioned process several times. Uh, Let me give you an idea very quickly of what I mean by that. I have on this slide sketched out the analytics process as I see it in very general terms. It's seldom this linear and tidy, but this is just the general thinking or behind my thinking. I think with many things, defining the objectives is most critical. If you don't get that right, then all your analytical calculus isn't going to help you. At the other end, if you're unable to communicate what you found, then all your hard work will have been in vain. But the steps in between, of course, are important. Each step is important. What I think is particularly important nowadays, we seem to always be in a rush to get everything done as quickly as possible, and often really aren't thinking about what we're doing. I think defining your objectives very clearly, very concretely, and thinking ahead to the deliverable in implementation is really important. Now, as I've mentioned, when we're talking about analytics, tools are important, but in my view, they're not the overriding focus. They shouldn't be. I'm not a software vendor. I don't sell proprietary methodologies or techniques. But I'd like to talk for the next 10 minutes or so on some analytical tools. Get into a little bit of detail. Not a whole lot. Nothing technical. But just to make this discussion a little bit more concrete, and because thus far we've been talking about analytics and process and things, and haven't really been very specific or concrete. We'll only have a few minutes, so I'm not going to go through the entire process. I'll just focus on the modeling steps. Now, in recent years, well, we saw the previous presentation. I think we all, have sensed that and all know that there's been tremendous advances in computer technology, not only software but of course hardware. And nowadays, it's pretty easy to do things that were unimaginable just a few years ago. And there's lots of statistical and analytic software out there that's quite, user-friendly. And there's a temptation when you get the data, just to, jump in to try to do the fancy stuff without getting to know the data. And a word to the wise: if you do that, trouble is waiting for you. You really need to spend some time thinking about what you're doing and take a close look at the data. And even nowadays, we have all these tremendous advances that have taken place, but it's not unusual at all for data to arrive and not to be what you're expecting. There are mistakes in it. It's just not, the data aren't usable. So you really got to spend time doing that. Experimental designs, they're going to be around forever. They're the backbone of things like conjoint and product testing and many of the things that we do. Sampling also is still key. Really, most of what Leslie Kish was writing 50 years ago is still entirely relevant. I've listed some other techniques here and basic things I think you're all familiar with: factor analysis, cluster analysis, significance testing, correlation things. I think regression is familiar to most of you, I bet, and that's probably the workhorse technique in just about any discipline. Now, besides those core methods, there are quite a few other things here that I could spend the whole session just on this that are out there, have been out there, techniques, methods that have been out for, and used in marketing research for a while, but probably are underutilized. I haven't really diffused that far. Conjoint, I mentioned a minute ago, that's that's one example. It's a trade-off methodology. It's very useful for product development, really for lots of things. You can run some really neat, what-if simulations. It's really good stuff. Structural equation modeling, at least the forms that we use in marketing research, was developed in educational psychology in the 60s and 70s, principally. Two of its pioneers were Carl Jorskog and Peter Bentler. So it's been around for a while. It's particularly useful for key driver analysis, where we want to try to identify, for example, customer priorities. Could be a satisfaction study or product test, whatever. So that's another method that's it's been around, but it's probably underutilized. There are several other things, multi-level modeling. I used to think that was really interesting for academics only, but there's some in multi-country study and things where we're sampling respondents, from different levels of a company's specializations can be particularly useful. Survival analysis is good for customer churn modeling. Okay, I'm having an issue here with trying to get to the next slide. Greg, can you help me out here?
Actually, I think Will's going to help you there.
Okay.
He's
Yeah, I saw something. Okay, yeah, latent class is a very useful method. It's not a panacea. It's really a collection or a family of applications and things that you can do. I first used it in the late 90s. It's very computer intensive, and in those days it was difficult with those computers and impractical for most applications. But it's no panacea. It takes a lot of thinking. It's not an automatic sort of process, but it's very, very useful. I found it very useful for segmentation and key driver analysis. Bayesian estimation is creeping out there. It's used a lot for certain types of things. Basically, the Bayesian paradigm means that we update our thinking in a nutshell based on new information. Text analytics is, perhaps it's unfair to put it there since it's so new, but there's a lot of neat stuff going on in that field. Okay, my screen is freezing up again. Okay. Is there something that I've done wrong here? Or?
No, I think Will handle all the
take care of that. Okay.
Hi, Kevin. Ray here.
Yeah.
I think temporarily you lost focus, so the next time you want to move forward, if you click on the screen twice, but only the next time, it should return control to you.
Okay, should I do that now? Or next time when I...
Yeah, when you move forward, click on it once, pause, click on it again, and it'll move forward.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to have to speed up here a bit. A lot of the do some forecasting into the future to see, for example, what the sales for our brand will be in 2013, or at least make an estimate of it. There's a whole slew of methods that were developed in operations research and econometrics that we can borrow and essentially do key driver analysis as well too, to try to identify which elements of the marketing mix have the most impact on sales, whether it be price, distribution, GRPs, things like that. Put together some what-if scenarios, do our ROI analysis and so forth. Okay. So click twice. Okay, yeah, okay. Let me go back. Okay, yeah, just very quickly, we're winding things up here. Data mining is another topic. It's received a lot of buzz in recent years. Um, it's a lot of data mining actually has nothing at all to do with marketing research. A lot of it is in science and medical research and so forth, but we do it. Two areas where it's been used for many years has been direct marketing and customer relationship management. There are a lot of techniques out there that can be used. You've probably heard of neural nets. There's a lot of hype about that many years ago, back in the 90s, and talk about artificial intelligence. The two are not the same. But neural nets is useful nonetheless. Things like Shade and CART, these things are probably familiar to some of you. There are zillions of these techniques. There are not quite zillions, but at least dozens that are used in data mining, and the type of data mining that we use as well. Now, in terms of analytics and where we're going, I'm not going to be especially bold in predicting where I think we're going. Big data is going to have a big influence on, I think, this field. There's going to be an increasing need for algorithms that can handle masses of streaming, high volume, high velocity data for pattern recognition and things that can update themselves. I think we're getting we're moving in that direction, but there's still a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. Bayesian things I've already mentioned, there's an increasing need for that. War games, by that I mean simulations where we could look and try to anticipate how competitors will react to various scenarios, market conditions, and competitive scenarios by other players in the market. War games are also useful for training, management training marketing managers, for example. So these things are all really being done to one extent or another. It's just a question of when they're really going to hit us and become part sort of our everyday work day. Well, again, with artificial intelligence, when that really, hits us, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe someday your marketing science director will be a computer. But I suppose that would imply that you yourself will be a computer. Don't want to think about that now, but I don't think we have to for the time being. For the foreseeable future, this guy here is our best analytical tool. And just to sum up here, getting back to the original theme, what do we mean by analytics? It's more than a buzzword. It's big business, and I think we need to be careful when we use the word to be precise and specific, not necessarily using any one definition, but be as specific as possible about what it is and what you are promising the client, internal or external. And I've proposed one definition that you can use if you wish. You're free to, or free to ignore.